What is up, guys? Welcome back to another video. So today, I know I haven't really been making a whole lot of videos as of recently. I haven't been inspired. I haven't really thought of any good ideas. But just the other day, I said, hey, let's do this video. Hasn't really been talked about by a lot of dudes, but I think it's a topic that should be covered on it. Today, we're going to be talking about the difference between custom swim bait rods and then just your traditional factory rods. So a lot of people have been asking questions about it, like, hey, should I get a custom rod from this maker, or should I just pick up a factory rod from this company? And it kind of just goes back and forth. So I'm going to talk about the pros and cons for each custom and factory rods. So it kind of gives you guys an idea on whether or not you do want a custom rod, or if you want to stick with some of the factory rods. So let's get right in the video. Before we get into today's video, the dudes over at Mystery Tackle Box have sent me the new Pro Box for September. We're going to open it up and see what's in it real quick. Alright, so on the first open, we have the Bagley Balsa B1 crankbait. It comes in like this nice little crawdad pattern. Good looking little shallow diving crankbait, honestly. I like the color. Moving on, we have the Catchco spinnerbait. Beautiful looking spinnerbait. It's a chartreuse and white spinnerbait. It's got the willow blades on there as well. 3/8 ounce, comes with a mustad hook. So overall, it looks like a good quality spinnerbait. Next, we have the Janko. It's a little lipless crankbait deal that they got going on. Beautiful color. I like the light purple that's in it. So far, like 3 really good fall hard baits in the box so far. You can't go wrong with the shallow diving crankbait, lipless crankbait, and a spinnerbait. Next, we have Smart Baits. It's a Cinco, color changing too. So when they're in the water, they change colors, as well as I think the water temperature too. So that's kind of cool, actually. And then with the Cincos comes with some zone locks, the 4/0 little offset hooks that are used pretty much for like a weightless rig on the Cincos. Now, if you guys do have weights though, the box does come with some pegs, so you can peg your Cinco. You can throw that out there, work more on the bottom, work it a little bit harder in deeper water. Next, we have the Bass Dynasty. They have these. They're called Dyna paddles. It's like a wacky rig bait. It's got paddle tails on the side of each bait. So think of like your regular trick worm or something like that, but it's got paddle tails on the side of it. So I'm kind of curious on how these things swim. They look pretty good though. They could be even used like on a drop shot. That'd be nice. And then the last thing that we have in the box is the Birospawn Exo Swim. So it's like nice little swim baits that you throw on like an A rig or like on a swim jig, so that you would use like a Kitech for. But comes with a full pack of 6. Good looking color too. It's the 4-inch one. So overall, this is actually like a pretty good box for the fall fishing that's going to be coming up here pretty soon. For any of you guys that are interested in signing up for Mystery Tackle Box, use this promo code right here to get $10 off your first ever box with Mystery Tackle Box. Well, other than that, let's get right into the video today, guys. Alright, so let me give you guys somewhat of a backstory. So when I first got into swim bait fishing, there wasn't a whole lot of custom swim bait rod makers out there. The one that came to mind though was Lowdown Customs. Ben Donati. Met the guy a couple different times. He's a really cool cat. He's the owner of Lowdown Custom Rods. And he was around, and like a lot of people were trying to get, a Lowdown custom rod. And like his rods were just beautiful customs. Everybody wanted them, so he was always booked up. So with me, at the time I was like in high school, I was like, dang, like I can't really afford to buy one of these sick custom rods. So I have to kind of go with the factory rod. So at the time I was kind of looking around, and like the first factory rod that I kind of got was just the typical Akuma guide. So like you can't really go wrong with this rod. Readily available. They were right there, and like they were like $130, $140 for the extra heavy model. So I was like, for the time being, I really can't afford the weight or the money for a Lowdown Custom. So you know what, let me just get a factory rod. So I got a factory rod. There's nothing really special to the factory rods, of course. I mean, they have their own quality and stuff like that, and like the guides are the same. They're just the regular traditional guides, and everybody's got one. Everybody can get one, and they're cheap, and they're able to, you can get them pretty much anywhere, nowadays especially. And the custom rods, you really can't do that. You have to wait months to even years to get your rod in, because everybody wants their rod from this specific bait maker. So at the time I really wanted a Lowdown Custom, but I just couldn't. So I picked up Picked up an Akuma Guide Select, as well as I picked up an iRod Genesis 2, one of their extra heavy swims. What I had, by no means, is the best gear, the best quality gear. The guide selects are fine, but obviously nobody's going to go out and say that they're the best rods, the best blanks, the best guides. Nobody's going to say the iRods are the best blanks or the best guides. And I wasn't looking for the best. I was just looking for something to use at the time, since I had nothing else to really use to throw these swim baits. So I went with the cheaper options, and they worked just fine for me. I caught plenty of big fish on them. On the iRod especially, I loved that rod. There were some cons to the factory rods. Some of them, you know, they felt different, and some of them had, you know, like shorter handles in the back, like the iRod. The iRod's handle was super, super short, so when I wanted to throw like the Hinkle, which I feel nowadays, since I use custom rods, that extra handle gives me like more power, and it's like natural when I throw such a heavy bait. Back on the iRod, I don't even remember how I was throwing it, honestly. It was just like, it felt like a bass rod that was just super beefed up that could throw a Hinkle. Just a super short handle, and it was like throwing it out there. But I got away with it. It worked just fine. It's just something to get used to. And, you know, going from complete factory rods into like this factory swimbait rod, it just didn't feel any different. Now, if I would go from like this rod to like my iRod, I probably wouldn't be able to throw a Hinkle on my iRod anymore. So I kind of grew out of the old ways of the factory rods, and I started to get custom rods. Nowadays, you know, fast forward a few years, there's a bunch of custom swimbait rod guys out there promoting themselves. I, for one, have been teaming up with my buddy Cam. He is the owner of Moem 5150 Sticks. He's actually a local dude. He used to be out in Colorado. He moved out down here, and we've talked, and I've got a couple rods from him, and it's just been a complete quality change. I mean, he uses the finest blanks, the Phoenix blanks that a lot of dudes use, just like Ben from Lowdown Custom. He uses the Phoenix blanks, and they're the highest quality blanks that everybody uses. And he uses incredibly strong guides, down even to the reel seats, to the corks, to the split grip. Everything is just super quality made, handmade, you know, each and every rod. So each rod is unique, and there's a lot of time and quality put into them. So you can't get that quality with the factory made one. You know, they're all the same. There's no little quirks to them, and it's just like what you get is what you get, kind of. Definitely love the custom rods over any of the factory rods. Now, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of good factory rods out there. The number one that comes to my mind is the Dobyns. The Dobyns series, like the 807, the 806, the 867, and the 908 are I think probably the best factory swimbait rods out there on the market. They're really, really solid rods. They're lightweight. They've been tested, you know, for the past few years. My buddy's got a rod. I fished it a couple times. He loves it. I like it. I like how light it is. Seems well balanced. So Dobyns is, of course, a higher class company that makes higher end swimbait rods. So their swimbait series, it's going to be more expensive, but they're still readily available. And any of the factory rods that I've ever seen are still going to be cheaper than any of the custom rods. And of course, you know, it's not as cool to get, you know, a factory rod, because everybody wants to be kind of cool and have their own, you know, style of rod and style of fishing. So everybody kind of wants their own different style of rod. And to me, I kind of felt the same after a while, you know, so I started to branch out, and I did want to get a custom rod. I hit up Cam, and I was able to get, you know, custom rods from him. Now, my first ever custom rod was a Lowdown Custom, but it was one of his production series. So I have two of the Lowdown rods. Both of them are his production series. They're not even like the super custom ones where I get to choose the color and the scheme and the split grip and all that. No, they're just the production ones that he will have, you know, readily available every now and then. It's still a custom rod, but it's more of just a factory custom rod. It's kind of weird to say, but it's just the ones that he, you know, makes kind of quick that he can have and sell. They go for a lot cheaper than, of course, the custom rods that take a lot more time and material to make. I've been fishing this one as of recently, and I love it. Even as it's a production rod, I still love this rod. It's an 8.6. It's the extra heavy rod. It throws a glide bait super, super well balanced, light. And pretty much all of the custom rod makers, they're doing the the custom spiral wrap rods. The acid wrap is what they're also called, where your guides will start just normal like a traditional rod, and then they'll spin one way or the other. It kind of depends on preference at the time, but your rod's not, messed up. It's not broken or anything like that. I've had a lot of people say, hey man, your guides are all messed up, and it's like, no, that's just how the rod is. And you can ask the rod makers to get more of an understanding on why, that's become more and more of a trend. But everybody just tells me it's one, for torque. If you think of how like a spinning rod is against like big fish, you just get more torque, and the line doesn't touch the blink of the rod, so there's less, advantage point for the line to break or something like that. But you can hit up some of the rod builders; they'll happily tell you, just to give a simple, explanation of the spiral wrap. And honestly, I think it just looks cool. I don't think it's a necessity to have spiral wrapped rods or anything like that. Like I've said, I've caught plenty of fish on the traditional rods in the past before with the traditional guides, and it all works the same. It's just how, a rod will turn out and look. So I don't think there's a whole lot, there to it, but again, I could be completely wrong. I'm not a rod maker. But overall, I mean, since there's more dudes now that are making these custom rods, it's a lot easier to get rods that are custom made. There's quite a few dudes that come to mind, like Mark Neflis of the Neflis Custom Rods. Of course, Moams, Kim, he makes his own rods. You have Lowdown Customs, of course, being the most popular one. You have F5, I've heard, making rods as well. So there's a lot of custom swimbait rod builders out there. So the demand for custom rods have kind of, brought back down. And it's not as crazy as it once was, where people waiting, years to get the rods. And some people still are, just because some people prefer this rod maker, and this rod maker is just a lot more popular than this rod maker. So this rod maker can make a custom rod in like 3 months, while the other dude has, 9 to 10 months to maybe even like a year to make a rod. So that's kind of a con, is the price of a custom rod, and then the wait for, a lot of the times to get your actual rod in. Luckily, Cam, he just lives probably like 30 minutes from me, so if I do want a custom rod from him, I can just go pick it up. He's not as like busy and as popular as like Ben is, so he can make custom rods within like 3 months, honestly. So kind of branching out has been kind of a major thing, especially when looking for custom rods. Everybody makes good custom rods. I haven't really heard anything bad about a certain rod maker. And you guys do have to understand, these custom rod makers, it's just them. It's only them making the rods. It's just one man with a whole lot of orders and a whole lot of rods. And rods take a long time to make in the custom aspect of it all. So people bashing some of the rod makers because it takes a long time, it's like, well, it's what you want is hard to do. And especially since these rod makers, they want to make it perfect, and to master perfection, it takes a long time to get everything right, so nothing fails or anything like that. So people complaining about ordering custom rods and the time, I just never understood. Like, you understand that it's one dude making the rods, you hit him with a bunch of different custom stuff that you really want on this rod, and like some of this stuff has to be ordered overseas, and it's just a whole process. So people arguing and complaining about it, I just never understood it. If you're going to complain about it, just pick up your basic factory rod and just go fish. That's how I look at it. But if you are able to make the weight, these rods are super, super sick. I love the look of them. I love the feel of them. And what's so cool is, like, with the custom swimbait rod dudes, is like they can make, certain different rods that some factory rods will never be. So like if you want like a rod that can throw like a 1 to 6 ounce range, that is like for glide baits or for soft baits, or like a specific style, they'll make it for you. Sometimes these factory rods, they're only made specifically for this and that or this and that, but like with this custom rods, you can have a specific rod for one specific bait, and it'll throw it perfectly. So there's a lot of pros and cons that way with custom rods and just your factory rods. At the end of the day, it's all up to you. If you want to spend the money and you have the patience to wait for a custom rod, get the custom rod. You know, you will not go wrong with it. I'll leave a link of some of the custom rod builders down in the description below if you guys want to check out some of their rods. Of course, other than that, thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, go out there and chase your dreams.